Why might good quality, low risk participants voluntarily disappear from a market? The answer could be adverse selection. It is a form of asymmetric information and it happens before a transaction when one side has better information about a hidden characteristics than the other side. This is important. Adverse selection is not about someone suddenly changing their behavior after a deal. That would be moral hazard. Adverse selection is about the type of person or the type of product entering the market in the first place. Now, let's begin with the second-hand car market to illustrate the problem of adverse selection. In this market, the seller usually knows more about the car than the buyer. The seller may know whether the car has hidden engine problem, whether it has been repaired multiple times, or whether it is actually a functioning car. The buyer, however, cannot easily tell, so there is asymmetric information, where the seller has better information while the buyer lacks information. Now imagine that there are two types of second-hand cars. Good quality cars, which we also call plums, are worth £10,000 each. Well, bad quality, low quality cars, which we also call lemon cars, are worth £4,000 each. The seller knows which type of car they have, but the buyer cannot tell the difference before buying. Suppose that the market initially has 50 good quality cars and 50 low quality cars, so 50-50. The buyer calculates the average value. So the weighted average would be 5,000 plus 2,000, so 7,000 per car. So the buyers are only willing to pay around 7,000 per car. But then let's think very carefully about what happens next. A seller with a low quality car is happy to sell for 7,000 because their car is only worth 4,000. But a seller with good quality car is not happy to sell for 7,000 because their car is worth 10,000. So the good quality sellers are more likely to leave the market. This marks the beginning of adverse selection. Once some good quality cars leave the market, the average quality of cars in the market falls. And if the average quality falls, buyers became even less willing to pay a high price. And if buyers offer an even lower price, a price that is even lower than 7,000, even more good quality sellers are going to leave the market. As more good quality sellers leave, the market becomes increasingly dominated and concentrated with low quality cars. This is why adverse selection can cause market failure. The market does not allocate resources efficiently because mutually beneficial trades did not happen. At least some of them didn't happen. Some buyers would have been willing to buy good quality cars. Some sellers would have been willing to sell good quality cars, but only at a fair high price. But because the buyers cannot distinguish the quality, the market price fails to reflect the true quality. Consequently, the market for good quality second-hand cars may shrink or even disappear. So this is an example of adverse selection. Now, let's look at another example of adverse selection, the insurance market. This time, the information problem is reversed. In the second-hand car market, the buyers lacks information about the product, but in the insurance market, the seller lacks information about the buyer. The risk level pertaining to each customer that purchase insurance service from the insurer, the insurance firm. Well, the insurance firm, the insurer, is the seller of the insurance service, but the insurance company may not fully know how risky each customer is. The customer themselves know more about their own lifestyle, their own level of health, driving habits, or likelihood of making a claim. So again, there is asymmetric information. It's just that this time the buyers of insurance service know more about themselves, while the seller of insurance service, the insurance firm, or we call the insurer, lack information about the customers. Now imagine that there are two groups of customers, low-risk customers that are expected to cost the insurer £200 per year. There are also high-risk customers that are expected to cost the insurer £1,000 per year. If the insurer cannot distinguish between them, the insurer is going to charge an average premium. So a premium is a price that customers pay the insurer for the insurance service that they buy. Right. So the average premium would be 100 plus 500. That's 600 pounds per person per year. So the insurance firm charges a premium of £600. Now think about the incentives. For high-risk customers, 600 is attractive because their expected cost is 1,000. They're likely to buy the insurance service, but for the low-risk customers, 600 is simply too expensive for them because their expected cost is only 200. They're more likely to leave the market. But once the low-risk customers leave, the insurance pool becomes even more risky on average. If the average risk rises, the insurer has to raise the premiums again. And if the premium rises, insurance becomes even less attractive for low-risk customers. So more low-risk customers leave the market voluntarily. The market gradually becomes increasingly dominated and concentrated with high-risk, low-quality customers. So this is an example of adverse selection in the insurance market. The people most likely to need insurance are also the people most likely to buy it. This can cause market failure because the insurance market may become smaller, more expensive, and less efficient. So in both the second-hand car market and the insurance market, the same adverse selection logic applies. The less informed side cannot identify the true quality or the true risk, so they use an average price or an average premium. But then since the average price changes the incentives of different groups, the better participants are going to live, leaving the market with riskier, worse participants. Eventually, the market becomes increasingly concentrated with low-quality, high-risk participants.